What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the sixth album by rock musician Kid Rock. Basically, this project is called Self-Titled and it came out in the fall of 2003. Now, the thing about this particular project is this came after Kid Rock's Cocky from 2001, which was kind of a big deal that got him a lot of good popularity with like adult contemporary and rock charts and country charts with songs like Picture with Sheryl Crow and some of those type pitches. I reviewed Cocky back in late 2016. That's a pretty good evolution of Devil Without a Cause, but it kind of switched up like the rap rock type feels. It did have a little bit of rap rock on there, but it mostly kind of became country rock and southern rock as far as that pitch particularly kind of happened with it, with a little bit of hard rock in there. Pretty stellar album. Kid Rock's usually pretty known throughout the late 90s and 2000s for having like a string of hit albums. Another one that was pretty good, just like these four, like Cocky, Devil Without a Cause, and this particular album would be Rock and Roll Jesus from 2007. That's another pretty good highlighted one, I suppose. But this one in particular, very mature album, I'd have to say. If you're looking for like an up tempo kind of Kid Rock, something like I Am the Bull God or one of those type ones, or Ball with the Boss, some of those type pitches, or even like the Southern rock, or even like the Southern karaoke type stuff with Cowboys, some of those type pitches. This album does not really have that pretty lambent kind of energy and just overall anguish and malaise, but just kind of in like a more diner and bar hopping type sense. I'd have to suppose this is really just like a southern diner type stuff, just something real malaise and kind of kickback just for like the evening skies. Almost kind of like a summer album, but just within the pitch, it just kind of having like that cool breeze kind of aspect of just like some diner type music and just overall kind of moody kind of anguish. So it's interesting that Kid Rock was kind of moodier on this particular album, more so if you like songs like Only God Knows Why off of Devil, if you like songs like Only God Knows Why off of Devil Without a Cause, I'd have to say this is like another album with that sort of pitch, just without the auto tune. I'd have to suppose a lot of good, just overall kind of stretching kind of songs that just have a lot of ballad type feels about it, just anguish kind of ballads as far as that pitch kind of happens. This is not a very up tempo type album. It does have some of that, but it's definitely in like a southern rock kind of pitch. Songs like Hillbilly Stomp, some of those type ones, and like Rock and Roll, Hillbilly Stomp, Cadillac Pussy, Rock and Roll, some of those type pitches just have a lot more of like a, just kind of have like a more country rap rock type feel about them just within that pitch. So this is not a very, if you're looking for like Devil Without a Cause type Kid Rock, if you're looking for Devil Without a Cause Kid Rock, it doesn't really have that on here very much, just minimal amounts of that. But for the most part, this is just like a stretching kind of one, just kind of in between like Uncle Cracker on like his 2002 type album with a little bit of Cocky in there from 2001, just some of those type pitches. Very much diner type music, I'd have to suppose. That's a pretty good concept, but also some lounge type music. I would also say just like a country kind of, just like a hard rock kind of bar type pitch of just like some, it's not necessarily night bar type music where it'd be 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, but just something for like 4 o'clock p.m., just getting 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock p.m., just midday pitches like that, just getting like a cold brew, something like that, and just kind of being in sorrows and anguish as far as that pitch can have. Just a lot of tunes for that, but it's a pretty good album. I do like this particular project. It's a hit quality here, despite the fact that Kid Rock's energy is not quite as affable as far as like his normal fiery type fare that he had on like Devil Without a Cause and Cocky and some of those type ones and stuff he did in the early 90s as far as that pitch can happens. But there were 5 singles off this particular album, and I wound up recommending to you 4 out of those 5. The only single I didn't recommend out of these is just Single Father, with just within that pitch. That one's kind of a malaise type one, but other than that, I mean, once again, there's no real song like Forever off of Cocky or Ball with the Ball off of Devil Without a Cause, some of those type pitches, or the single American Badass off of the History of Rock, some of those type pitches. A lot of these are just really just kind of diner type music, just sullen, kind of just dreary, kind of moody, kind of bar hopping type tunes, and just diner type music just within that pitch. So I just would have to say we'll get to some of these, but basically, I Feel Like Making Love was the first single. This is a cover song. I'd have to say this is like a woozy kind of saloon and bar malaise of a song. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept for that in particular. This is like a hard rock kind of lounge music of a song. I'd have to say this is very dreary, but it's catchy, and this is very dreary, but it's also pretty catchy and workaday. I'd have to suppose. So it's a dope enough concept to get this in particular. It's just a lot different from Kid Rock's typical kind of pitches. This particular album just showcased a more mature kind of Kid Rock, more of him kind of on like his Picture type vibes. I really think the song Picture was a big deal for Kid Rock back in 2001, 2002. That was one of the bigger songs of 2002, just really charted pretty heavily, and I think that was one of the main reasons why Cocky went multi-platinum back in 2002 as far as that pitch can happen. This is just another highlighted type hit. I don't know how full-blown it charted. I mean, this particular album was good, but it just didn't compare to Cocky and Devil Without a Cause. I think it at least went 2, 3, or 4 times platinum, something like that, but the singles off this particular project are just, they're very ambient, this kind of thing. They're just very ambient and like their anguish as far as that pitch kind of goes. This is just some very, Feel Like Making Love is just some very woozy and kind of drunken saloon type music, and it works pretty well just within that pitch. It's very much just bar hopping, just midday, 2 o'clock p.m., something like that as far as that pitch kind of goes. Single Father's the second single. Didn't really appreciate this particular song that much. It was just kind of a malaise type one that just didn't work that well. It's just kind of one I didn't vibe with quite as well. I did like the pitch behind it, but it just didn't quite have the energy quite as compelling with it. was this basically like a homely type song that didn't really have much pitch of energy or just real much affability. Was this one that didn't have much pitch of energy or real connectability towards it. I mean, it worked to like the topic of what it is in particular, but it just was kind of one that just didn't have like the true kinetic type vibes about it, I'd have to suppose. So it's just kind of the concept about that one. The only single off this particular album I didn't enjoy, so it's just kind of the concept about it, but it is kind of like another Anguish type one. I mean, all of these singles, minus like Jackson, Mississippi, really, I would say all five of these singles particularly have like that same kind of Anguish, kind of bar hopping type malaise about them. Just great for like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock p.m. Just as the sun setting, pitches like that, just within like some dreary type sense of just woozy saloon type music. But it just is kind of the concept that particular thing. I do think Kid Rock needed like a shot in the arm as far as something like "I Am the Bull God" or something like that, or "Forever" off of "Cocky," one of those type ones. Is some of those type pitches. "I Am the Bull God" off of "Devil Without a Cause." Some of those type particular type pitches, because I just think it's fine that Kid Rock kind of went in this mature kind of direction, but this is just a very kind of sleepy and just drizzled. This is just a very kind of sleepy and just drizzled kind of album. I'd have to suppose it's this kind of concept, very much languid and just stuff like that. I'd have to say, so that's the concept about it. But "Cold and Empty" is the third single. I'd have to say this is like a good 1-2 punch with "Making Love." I'd have to say with "Feel Like Making Love," the first single. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept for that in particular. This is a little bit more soul, and I'd have to say compared to "Feel Like Making Love," but it's a grand kind of hard rock bar music. I'd have to suppose. And this is just kind of some dreary fun. So once again, all five of these singles just kind of go hand in hand, just with that dreary kind of saloon type malaise as far as that pitch can happen. This one's just a little bit more sullen, but it's a pretty grand type song. I'd have to suppose pretty good for like some hard rock type, pretty good for like some hard rock bar and hard rock lounge type pitch as far as that kind of happens with it. But just the energy of these are just like a 2 or a 3 out of 10. For the most part, these are just very kind of just moody, ruminating as far as that pitch can happen. It's interesting that Kid Rock was kind of down in the dumps on this particular album. It works pretty well, but it's just kind of the concept that it's not very peppy project, minus some of these album cuts like Cadillac Pussy and Hillbilly Stomp, some of those type ones. But that's what I'd say. Jackson, Mississippi tries to rev things up a little bit, at least in the chorus. There's more hard rock on there, at least more southern rock as far as that pitch kind of goes. Jackson, Mississippi is like a good simmering kind of southern rock haze of a song. I'd have to say pretty good concept for that in particular. It's like a summer wet. It's like some summer weather grilling. I would have to suppose definitely. And this is just similar to like AC/DC. I would definitely feel like, and this is pretty. And this song is just similar to some AC/DC bops. I would have to suppose definitely within that pitch. It's something like Back in Black. Some of those type pitches, just those stretching kind of summer type songs that just have that particular kind of simmering type haze about them. Very good griller here. I would have suppose it's a good concept to get some of these. This real nice summer kind of Anguish as far as that kind of goes. This one's not as much like a bar hopping type music, but it definitely has that particular feel. This kick back. It's a real good stretcher as far as that particular kind of haze just happens with it. It's a real hazy type one, just to look into the pink skies and things like that as far as that kind of goes. Kind of has a little bit of energy in the chorus as far as that pitch kind of goes, but it's just kind of, for the most part, just is a relatively just laid back kind of energy like most of these singles on here. A far cry from Kid Rock's rap rock days, I'd have to say. And then "I Am" is the fifth single. It's like a stretching kind of evening malaise of a song. I'd have to say pretty good concept for that one in particular. This song simmers. I would have to say this is a good wind down kind of workaday vibes that this song particularly kind of has, and this is just a stock kind of country rock tune. I'd have to say, and this song is just good to go. So I definitely feel like about this one in particular, this one's just crafted just right, just crafted for that particular radio type feel as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just a vanilla kind of country rock type tune, just works within that sense. It's a stretching kind of summer one, goes pretty well with Jackson, Mississippi. Just a little bit more of like a malaise type one. I'd have to say, just good concept for that. Just some good wind down type haze, just as far as that particular goes. I would say Feel Like Making Love and Cold and Empty are more like the bar hopping type ones. It's kind of dreary type saloon type music, and I'd say "I Am" and Jackson, Mississippi are kind of ones that I'd say "I Am" and Jackson, Mississippi are kind of ones for more like summer stretchers, just kind of car malaise and stuff like that, just being on the porch and just sipping a brew, something of that relative pitch, just some kickback and like a relatively kind of just malaise, hazy kind of, in a relatively kind of hazy just situation as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just some good stuff there. Then "Single Father" is just kind of an in-between kind of homely type song, I'd have to say. So that's the concept about it. But so not counting intro, there's 14 songs in this particular album, and out of those 14, I wound up recommending 9.5. So it's a pretty good pitch to get that one in particular. So it's a pretty good pitch to get that in particular, I'd have to say. So we're going to talk about these 9.5 songs I recommend. So I'll go ahead and recommend these songs. They would be, so the 9.5 songs I recommend would be "Feel Like Making Love," "Cold and Empty," Jackson, Mississippi, "I Am," "Cadillac Pussy," "Hillbilly Stomp," "Son of Detroit," "Hard Night for Sarah," "Do It For You," and the Almost song will be "Rock and Roll." So talk about some of these. Basically, "Rock and Roll" is the Almost song. This is like a malaise kind of late day summer griller. I'd have to say, So Malay's kind of late day summer griller, I'd have to say pretty good concept for that one in particular. This is like an uptown kind of city hopping. This song's like an uptown kind of city hopping, grab a hot dog, smoke one kind of tune, I would have to say. And this song kind of has some mid pep about it. So this is a decent one here. Kind of felt somewhat haphazard about the affability behind this particular one. I mean, it's a decent enough one, but I kind of feel like the normal Kid Rock kind of energy on like a song like I Am the Bulldog. I kind of feel like the normal pep from Kid Rock on a song like I Am the Bull God or some of those type pitches or Ball with the Ball just doesn't compare. Rock and roll just doesn't compare to songs like I Am the Bull God and Ball with the Boss, some of those type pitches. It's kind of like a malaise type one. I mean, this album just has a different kind of pitch. Even like the up tempo song, Kid Rock just really struggled with the up tempo songs on this particular album. They're just a lot more Southern fried, but they just don't pull out the vibe quite as well as he did with Devil Without a Cause. That one was just so much fire. That one was just so much more fiery and stuff like that. And even the album Cocky did a better job with it. Some of these like Cadillac Pussy, Hillbilly Stomp, Son of Detroit, and Rock and Roll. All of these are kind of some up-tempo type ones, but the energy is just like it pales in comparison. It's probably about an eighth or a sixth as good as far as that pitch in terms of the affable type energy on here. Not to say these are bad songs. I kind of feel like Rock and Roll is an almost songs I do recommend it, but I just don't know how oftenly I'd listen to it compared to some more revved up kind of Kid Rock songs that just have a lot more fiery in a sense, I have to suppose. Speaking of some up-tempo Kid Rock, Hillbilly Stomp's a pretty nice one. This has a rapping Kid Rock on here, so this is like a country rap, kind of vintage rapping Kid Rock, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good concept for that in particular. It's like a good sequel to Cowboy, I'd have to suppose. Cowboy off of Devil Without a Cause. Same kind of format and template as that particular song, I'd have to say, definitely. And this is just kind of a rumbling country dance hit, I'd have to say. So this is a pretty good concept. This one just in particular has that same kind of rev type energy, just a real nice one, but it's very country fried. It has to suppose if you're not here for country rap and stuff like that, this is a pretty southern fried type one. Cowboy is a little bit more affable, like in a casual sense, I'd have to say, but I would have to say Hillbilly Stomp's definitely a country fried type one that has some good jive about it, just for moonshine and stuff like that, just beer swilling, some of those type tunes as far as that pitch can have. It's just a real nice country fried type one to kind of get. Another solid up tempo song would be Cadillac Pussy. This is definitely kind of a bopish, kind of uptown 50s like doo wop like kind of jive that this song particularly kind of has. It's like a good mild heat summer griller. This song is like a good mild heat kind of summer griller, I'd have to say, and this is a pretty good mid pace kind of cruiser. So it's definitely like some cruising just in an uptown kind of sense, just kind of in a more old town type fashion, just within that particular sense, an uptown type town, something like that, just within that relative pitch, just kind of up the block, some of those type pitches, just a more kind of southern fried type town or something of that relative pitch. Pretty nice one for thrifting and antiquing as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. Just a real kind of southern fried type one that has a good amount of appeal. But this is, I mean, obviously with this song being called Cadillac Pussy, it's just a good bop for like Cadillac Pussy as far as that particular pitch kind of has with it. Just the concept of getting some southern fried, and just the concept of getting some ladies just within that relative pitch, just in a southern fried kind of sense, just with like, but it just has a very 50s doo-wop type feel about it. It's just kind of a lot more of an uptown type feel, just really funkadelic just within that relative pitch as far as that kind of happens. Just a good concept. It has some jive about it, but it's just very old fashioned kind of concept. This is about as jivey as Kid Rock really particularly gets on this particular album. Between this song, Cadillac Pussy, and Hillbilly Stomp, these are the two most jivey ones. But once again, Kid Rock is way more of a fiery kind of party animal, and songs like I Am the Bull God and Ball with the Boss, some of those type ones, Forever, American Badass, some of those type pitches, Rock and Roll Jesus, some of those type ones, So Hot, some of those type ones off of Rock and Roll Jesus, I just would have to say. So that just happens to be the concept in particular. But another highlight type one that's another up-tempo type one would be Son of Detroit. This is a nice one. It's like a jivey kind of hard rock bar music of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a snappy energy that this song particularly kind of has. It's pretty similar to Cadillac Pussy, I would definitely kind of say, but it's a little bit more dance ready. So Son of Detroit is definitely like some jukebox and kind of saloon type music, just in a more up-tempo type sense. Definitely pretty good southern rock kind of dance type tune, I would have supposed, just for like some hard rock kind of lounge type music, just within a more sense of just kind of getting crunk a little bit and having some jive about it, just within that relative pitch. Pretty nice one, just kind of the concept that once again, I feel like the kind of metal type vibes just work better than hard rock for Kid Rock, I'd have supposed, just kind of more typical kind of old school kind of rock, this 70s rock kind of fashion, just within that pitch, more ZZ Top and folks like that, classic 70s AC/DC, some of those type pitches as far as that kind of happens with it. But I would have to say some good concepts here, but it's not really metal. This is not really a metal album, I'd have to say. If you're looking for metal Kid Rock like he was in like the early 2000s and late 90s, it just doesn't really have that in particular. This is not really as much of rap rock, but I'd say still some pretty nice stuff. A lot of this is bar music. A lot of this, there's some songs on here like Cold and Empty, Feel Like Making Love, Son of Detroit, some of those type ones, a little bit of Cadillac Pussy, Hard Night for Sarah, some of these type ones. There's a lot of good bar tunes on here. It just kind of depends upon the mood towards it, just really being affable towards the bar. Some of it's dreary kind of soul, and some of it's a little bit more up tempo and jivey. It's just kind of the concept. But So talk about Hard Night for Sarah. This is a pretty nice one. This is like a dreary kind of hard rock. This is some dreary kind of hard rock lounge sludge, I would have to suppose in particular. This is a grab a brew kind of malaise, I would definitely feel like. And this is just kind of some glum ruminating, but it's pretty catchy, I'd have to say. So I definitely like this one. This just remind Hard Night for Sarah reminds me of something that Uncle Cracker would do just within that relative sense. Definitely some dreary kind of Hard Night for Sarah reminds me of something that Uncle Cracker would do. Same type of cover type song. This is a cover song by Bob Seger. This is a cover of a song by Bob Seger. It has, I suppose, pretty good pitch to get this one in particular. It just works pretty well. Just that dreary kind of lounge music that works pretty well. This would have to say in particular. So that's a nice one. And Do It For You is another nice one in particular. Also, this is like a sullen kind of diner music of the song. I'd have to say it's like some day Do It For You is like some soul and kind of diner music. I would definitely have to say it's like a day after hours kind of sludge of a song. I'd have to suppose in particular, and I'd have to say it's like some workaday kind of moodiness. I would definitely feel like this is just a good kind of hazy country rock of a song. I'd have to say this is pretty dope concept to get this one in particular. I'd have to suppose just some good. Once again, some of this music really reminds me of some stuff that Uncle Cracker would kind of do. This is just real great diner type music. This real kind of kickback. I don't, if you don't have diners in your city or something like that, if you live in a bigger, more illustrious kind of city, something like that, I would definitely say this like some bar hopping type music, just with a lot of malaise, a place where you could get liquor and food as far as that particular pitch kind of happens. It's definitely like some Blimpies music, something like that, some of those type pitches, Subway type music, just maybe without I mean, Subway may not have liquor, but just kind of a pitch of just something where you'd hear like some lackadaisical kind of just summary type music, just with like that typical kind of haze, something of that relative pitch, I'd have to say. But the concept about this particular album, so to talk about the songs I don't recommend on here, which is basically just about four and a half of these, I'd have to say. Basically, Single Father, I already talked about. That was just kind of a homely type one that just didn't work that well. Just a poor single, I'd have to say. Run Off to LA was just kind of an awkward type one. That was kind of a lengthier type one. Was just kind of a rock type. Was just kind of a country rock type song that just didn't pull off the vibes quite as well. That one was just kind of a clumsy type one. Rock and Roll Pain Train was just kind of a poor type one. Also, that was kind of too lengthy. Rock and Roll Pain Train was just too lengthy of a song. I'd have to say it was just kind of the composition of that particular song was just kind of more awkward than it needed to be. It just didn't really have the particular kind of vibes. That was just some more diner type music that just didn't pull off the vibes that well. It was just kind of a stretching type one that just didn't work. And then Black Bob was just kind of a summary type one, some summer kind of haze and just mid-tempo kind of malaise about it, kind of similar to the song Rock and Roll, song number 8 off this particular album. It just didn't pull out the vibe nearly as well, I'd have to say. So this is kind of the concept about it. Just some kind of dud type ones. I mean, I really feel like this album needed a jolt in the arm. It definitely, I feel like the most energized songs on here would just be Cadillac Pussy and Hillbilly Stomp, but both those songs are so country fried just within the first place. It just doesn't have like a lot of good metal type vibes, which Kid Rock definitely needs some of that. I think his old kind of pitches from what he was in like the 90s and early 2000s definitely needed to shine over. Definitely needed a song like American Badass on here, something like that. Just something with a little bit more up tempo type spark and fire as far as that pitch kind of happens. I mean, 5 singles that are all kind of just mid tempo or down tempo kind of, they're all just kind of down tempo, soul and kind of dreary, bar hopping kind of ruminators. It's just kind of the concept. It just doesn't really have it just doesn't have the correct kind of affability just within the market. I mean, I feel like Kid Rock went from marketing his music towards folks in like their earlier mid 20s to marketing towards folks in like their mid to late 40s, something within that relative pitch, which just happens to kind of be the concept about it in particular. So it was a pretty vast difference going from Devil Without a Cause to this particular album just within a span of like 5 years. Is just the particular pitch about it. But then Cocky was kind of like that too. I mean, at least Cocky had half songs of up tempo and half songs of songs like Picture with Sheryl Crow. But it's just kind of the concept. This one is just a complete down tempo type album. Yeah, the bar hopping's pretty good. I do like some of this dreary kind of soul and ruminating, but it's just kind of the concept that you don't really get any jolt where you're just ready for a Friday, Saturday night or some of those type pitches. Just kind of concept. So but I'm gonna go ahead and score this album, me recommending 9.5 songs out of 14. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like a 7.75 out of 10. Pretty good, just within the concept. This is a pretty relatively solid. This is a pretty mostly solid Kid Rock album. I'd have to say I do think Cocky and Devil Without a Cause are better, but this is a mature type album, definitely good for a more blue collar type market, just within a more sense of just like more elderly kind of feel. Like if you did like Devil Without a Cause, but then you grew up a bit and you just changed and your mentalities and morals and ethics kind of changed just within that pitch. This is a good example of sticking with Kid Rock, but not quite being as much of like a hothead that you were back in the new metal days as far as that pitch can happen. So it's just good. So it's just a good concept for that. The social score though, I'm not going to give the social score a very high score. I'd probably give the social score like a 5.25 out of 10, just because the concepts. There are some songs on here, these country rock type songs like Cadillac Pussy, Hillbilly Stomp, Son of Detroit, some of these type ones. They do have some decent kind of bar hopping, but it's definitely in like a more country rock. It's definitely in a more country rock type field, I would have to suppose in particular. It's just kind of the concept. It's not a very sociable album. And for the most part, the ladies' songs on here are just kind of here and there, just within that relative pitch. Just a lot more ruminating, a lot more in slur, just stuff like that. Just doesn't have the real social spark. Definitely not much like a weekend album. It's just a lot more of like Tuesday afternoon kind of marinating, just getting drunk on a Tuesday, just kind of being glum and depressed. Some of those type pitches, just marinating and reflective. Just this is a very reflective kind of album, just within that relative pitch. Just a lot more insular, just kind of down in the dumps somewhat. It's not like that's too big a deal because I do like some of these ruminating type songs. I do like some of this moodiness, particularly on here, but it's just not very like electric, I'd have to say. So that's kind of the concept. 5.25 social. In terms of the future, like there's a number of Kid Rock albums. I wish that they'd finally put like some albums like Early Morning Stone Pimp on Spotify, some of those type pitches, so I could review them a little bit better. I do want to review some more rap rock, Kid Rock, as far as that pitch kind of happens. And there are some more Kid Rock albums past like Rock and Roll Jesus that I have to get to. So there's definitely some more Kid Rock I'm gonna have to review down the road as far as that pitch kind of happens with that. Pretty solid album here, good enough. Not very sociable, not very much of like a kind of social spark and fraternize kind of album, but I would have to say it's solid enough just within that pitch. It's kind of a lot more soul and kind of ruminating just within that field. So that's some good stuff here relative to what the field that it's in.